You're ugly. Delete your channel. Just give up. These are some examples of comments one, you're a clown. These are examples of comments I've received on my YouTube channel over the last 15 years. Let's talk about how do we deal with mean, critical, hurtful comments, or maybe a better way is how do we not deal with them, because I've made all the mistakes. That's the topic of today's video. By the way, if you're interested in using YouTube to start and grow an online business, I've got a free gift for you later. But first, a story. In case we haven't met, my name is Joe Gilder. I started a YouTube channel in 2009 called Home Studio Corner. That has become a six-figure business for me and my family, and this channel here talks about what I do to run that business. So years ago, I sent out an email. I was in this phase of sending these short little emails like several times a week just to connect with my audience and try to sell something. And the format was typically a quick story and then a quick pitch. Nothing huge, not a huge like sales pressure situation. And I would usually tell a random story about something that happened in my life, find a clever way to tie it to my product and sell it. So the story of the day, I mentioned in the email that I had one of those Keurig coffee machines and how I would do this thing where I would get it all ready and hit brew, but then I'd forget to put the cup underneath, so coffee spilled everywhere on the counter. And I talked about how it's frustrating and stupid and it's embarrassing how many times that's happened to me. And then I must have tied that into something related to music production, which is what I sell. I sell courses on music production. Well, there was a phrase in that email that said, like most people, I own a Keurig coffee machine. Well, apparently, to this one person, that was one of the most elitist statements I could have ever made. In hindsight, wish I hadn't said it. But I'm just talking, everyone I knew at the time had those K-Cup machines because they were wildly popular at the time. I've since gone back to drip because drip is better. But this person just went off the rails. They sent back an email. This is the most elitist thing I've ever heard. I can't believe you said everybody uses a drip. I use a drip coffee maker. And I was like, whoa, Thomas, easy turbo. I still remember his name because he had a pattern of getting really mad about really weird and dumb stuff, like offhanded comments in an email. He would get real mad about it. It was never about the actual thing I was talking about. He was always mad about something on the side. So eventually I had to block him after trying many times to reason with him. He was unreasonable, so it didn't work out. So that's an example of an email response. But the same thing can happen and probably is more likely to happen on your YouTube channel. We now live in the digital age. The digital age has been here for a few decades. People have become really good at being really mean online. Someone who is probably a teddy bear in real life will now flame you in the comment section of your video if you say something that they disagree with. It's the world we live in. I don't like that that's the world we live in, but it is the world that we live in. People can be a brave little keyboard warriors when probably in real life they're delightful. They would never say things like this to your face because they would probably get punched. If they acted in real life the way they act online, they would get punched a lot and it wouldn't happen as much. But online, you can be anonymous, you can be mean, and there are seemingly no consequences. I would argue there are consequences that they don't realize just in their own hearts. But the fact of the matter is, when someone criticizes you, specifically comes at you, like you make a statement and they take it two steps further and come at you as a person, it hurts. Now, some people may say, I don't care, I don't mind. If that's you, more power to you. A, I don't know if I believe you, because B, sensitive musician, creative person, me, it hurts my feelings. Still to this day, 15 years later, it just recently hurt my feelings. And that's real. I don't want to tell you that that's normal. So if you think, man, I'm not cut out for this because if someone makes a mean comment, it hurts my feelings. Yeah, that's true. There's a reason why you'll see these major celebrities say like they've made a habit of not like Googling themselves, not reading comments online, because if you think on one level how ridiculous this person who has succeeded in all these levels, and yet this quote unquote nobody over here can still hurt their feelings by being super critical. So it's reasonable that it hurts. Here's the reason it hurts so bad is it's tapping into an insecurity that you already have about yourself. So if you've started a YouTube channel, you know this very well. If you are hesitant to start a YouTube channel, this is why, because there's this phrase in your head that says, who do you think you are? Who are you to teach music production? Who are you to teach people how to play bass guitar? Who are you to talk about being a professional musician? Who are you to talk about making balloon designs? Who are you to teach people how to do taxes? Like, who are you to blank? That's the question. And you've got to answer that question for yourself because people are going to be asking it. If we're all honest, whenever I come across anyone on YouTube who is trying to impart some sort of wisdom on me, a first question is, all right, but who are you to tell me this? Now, I don't type that in the comments, but that's the first thing is like, okay, you're saying some things with some authority. I got to pair that with why do you have any authority on this? Tell me why I should listen to you. That's a valid request. And that's something that we have to answer for ourselves in order for our audience to listen to us. So for example, I teach music production over at Home Studio Corner. Who am I to teach music production? I'm a guy who's a good musician, who has learned how to do music production and can do it really well. That's enough for me. That I've come to peace with that. I don't have a Grammy on my wall. You've probably never heard my music before, but I've done the thing that my audience wants to do, and now I'm helping them do the same. I am 100% cool with that. Now you may have some. I've got a video suggestion at the end if you have a problem with that. But I'm cool with that. Now here on this channel, I'm talking about growing and building an online business. Who am I to talk about growing and building an online business? I'm a guy who grew and built an online business. Is it a multi-million-dollar a year business? No. But it is a business that generates on average about $25,000 a month for me. That's awesome. And it's all on the back of YouTube. I love that. That's great. I am so thankful for that. And I love to create. I love to teach. And I don't get to talk about business in my other channel all that much. So I created this channel so I could talk about stuff like this that I love to talk about, but I don't get to talk about because I'm always talking about music and music production. So that's where this new business came in. Who am I? Am I the best in the world at business? No. Are you the best in the world at what you do? Probably not. There's probably always going to be someone better than you. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do what you do. But it does mean you need to be able to answer the question, who am I to do this? Why am I doing this? It doesn't mean you have to say, I'm the best in the world at this. Think about that guy on YouTube. He's got the greatest mouth on the internet. You don't have to be that cocky, but you do need to be confident in the value that you bring to the table. Even with all that in place, when someone questions who do you think you are and however they leave a comment on your channel, it's gonna sting and you're gonna want to jump in and defend yourself because you want to prove to them that you do bring something to the table. I will tell you from experience that never actually helps. Now, real quickly, if you have an online business or you're thinking about starting a YouTube channel and or an online business, I'd love to teach you the system that I've used over the years to grow and build my business. I've done a free masterclass for you. You can have it for free. Just go to joegilder.biz/game to check that out. So now I want to share with you 4 pieces of wisdom that I've learned the hard way over the last decade and a half in dealing with these negative comments. The first is ask yourself, is there something for me to learn here? This one is really hard to do. I get goosebumps thinking about it because it's so difficult. The person is coming at you with some sort of a negative comment. Now, if it's a comment like, you're ugly, I'm good at just letting that one go. Can't do anything about that one. But if it's a comment that says, hey, your approach here isn't that helpful, or the thing you're teaching, you're not making it clear enough, I don't understand what you're doing, I at least give them the benefit of the doubt and think, is there some truth to what they're saying? Is there something for me to learn that can help me be better? That's taking feedback, right? Doesn't mean I'm beholden to everything anyone comments on my videos. I have to do what they say. But I think a lot of people want to say, oh, just ignore the haters. Well, first of all, they may not be a hater. They may be giving legitimate feedback, and there may be something there for you to learn. If you just ignore all comments you don't agree with, you might miss a good opportunity to improve and to get better. They're maybe helping you become the version of you that you need to become. So while they may be doing it in a rude way, there may still be something there to learn. So be open to calmly just asking yourself, even just 30 seconds, Is there something for me to learn here? If so, let's figure that out. Second thing, this is something that I say to myself, not to the commenter, regularly, or to people that I'm talking to who are in the creative space. It is easier to create than it, oh, shoot, I said it backwards. It is easier to criticize than it is to create. To create is to put yourself out there. If you haven't read the book, it's by Seth Godin. It's called The Icarus Deception. And he's a marketing, he writes a lot of books about marketing and business, but it applies to you if you're doing any sort of creative endeavor, which, by the way, building an online business is one of the most creative things I've ever done. And I'm a musician who creates albums, and I think business is as creative, if not more creative, than making music. So he's talking in terms of business, but he's using words like art to talk about the work that we do in business, because especially in this world of YouTube videos, content creation, I am creating something and putting it out there and saying, here, I made this. What do you think? Now, for a lot of people, the answer is crickets. You don't really hear anything. That's probably a topic for another video, but sometimes the answer is, I think it sucks. And one thing that we have to keep in mind, one thing that I run through my brain is, it's easier to criticize than it is to create. There's a reason that most people sit and consume things on YouTube, and a very, very small percentage create on YouTube. To create is to be brave, is to put yourself out there, is to say, I have something to offer, and to risk being rejected, being hurt. There is so much courage that goes in to creating. I'm not saying this to pat myself on the back. I'm saying this because I know I've seen people fight and struggle to get to the point where they feel okay with putting themselves out there, because there's a lot there. It's so easy to sit behind a keyboard and just be mean, right? It is easier to criticize than it is to create. Remember that. It's a way of telling yourself, I'm doing harder work than they are. I worked harder on this than they did. So I can take their comments with a grain of salt. Third piece of wisdom, when someone's especially mean to you, name calling, going after your character as a person, every time, I would recommend that you remind yourself, whatever they're saying, it's not about me, it's about them. Someone who comes at you viciously, tearing down your character as a person based on a comment about a coffee maker, chances are they're not really mad at you. They're mad about something else going on in their life. They're mad at themselves for the ways that they have not stepped out and been brave the way you've been brave. They may have some completely unrelated situation in their life. Maybe their relationships are falling apart, their family's falling apart, there may be an illness or a loss or a death or any number of things. Sadly, you'll probably never know. There have been very few occasions where I've engaged someone who's been really mean, and I've been like, I hear what you're saying about this, but you seem really angry. Like, what's going on? Typically, though, I don't have any relational capital there. They're not an actual friend. If it's someone I recognize who comments a lot, I might be able to say, you good? And they might say, hey, sorry, I lost my job today, blah, blah, blah. I overreacted. It's not about you. Most of the time, they're not going to respond that way, which is why I typically don't respond. But remember, it's not really about you. It's about them. But you have to pair that with, they may have some legitimate feedback for you that'll make you better. So don't just reject them completely without first checking to see if maybe there's some truth there first before you reject the meanness in their comment. And then finally, here is a phrase. These are all phrases really that I tell myself, not so much that I tell them, because they don't really listen. But here's a great phrase. You have created something, they have not liked it. The next thing I'm thinking in my head is, it's not for you. This is not for you. If someone comes along and is just royally offended by your existence, by everything that you stand for, by the existence of your channel and your business and the thing that you teach, it's just not for them. Run along. There are plenty of people that I can serve. I don't feel the desperation to have to convince you that I'm the one to help you. If anything, I certainly don't want you to become a customer. You're going to be a terrible customer. If you're this needy with a free YouTube video, run along. Now, I don't tell them this because they wouldn't like it, but in my head, I'm like, yeah, I'm not for you. And you could almost make the case, my mouth just made a popping sound. You could almost make the case that if you're not getting any negative comments, any people pushing back, you may be too generic and too vanilla. You may not be pushing the envelope. I'm not saying you have to be super controversial, but you may, if you're spending all your time hedging everything that you say and never saying anything definitive for fear of pissing anybody off, you're probably making boring content. So practice saying definitive things. I'm not saying stir the pot and try to start fights, but you might say, instead of, here's what I think maybe might be a great approach to blah, you might say, here's the best approach to this. Here is one of the best ways to achieve blah, blah, blah. That A is just, people won't want to hear that more than they want to hear your pandering to not offend anyone. And it's more valuable for them. But if you're doing that, then you're probably going to get some comments for people who don't like that you're being so decisive about it. So let it be, if you're getting some of those comments, sometimes I just go, some days I get a mean comment and it really does roll off my back. And I'm like, all right, I must be doing something right. My stuff is reaching a big enough audience that some people don't like it. That's cool, versus me staying in my tiny little bubble. So if you want growth, if you want to expand to a larger audience, some of those people in that process aren't going to like you, and that's okay. Okay, as the final piece of this video, I've got 3 options for you for how to actually respond to these comments. The first is my best secret weapon for this. Just ignore them. Yes, listen to what they're saying for feedback if there's anything there, but otherwise, don't respond. I don't necessarily delete all the mean comments unless they're like really vulgar. Typically, I just do not respond. More on that in a second. Ignoring them is probably best. They want you to engage with them. They want to argue. They're looking for a fight. Don't give them what they want. It's like that old saying, if you fight with a pig, you end up getting muddy and they like it. So just let them be as much as you want to get in the last word. That person about the coffee maker, I tried to engage and it just made him even more mad. There was one occasion where he apologized. Oh, this same guy, he would get mad at me and my friends who are in the same niche. And I remember at one point he actually apologized saying, my dog just died. I'm lonely. I was just venting. And it was kind of a sweet moment. He proceeded to be a jerk like the next day. But for a minute there, anyway. So the second option, one is to ignore them. The second option is to treat them very kindly, to kill them with kindness. This can work. I've occasionally done this where someone's been mean, but they've maybe made a good point, and I'll say, oh, I see your point. I meant this, but I said this. Thanks for pointing that out. And I won't address the meanness. I'll just address the point they're trying to make, assuming they'd made it in a kind way. They'll come back sometimes and say, thanks, Joe. Sorry I was rude before. I'm having a bad day. It's funny how it doesn't happen all the time, but occasionally they'll come out and be like, yeah, I was a jerk. Sorry. If you respond with kindness. Doesn't always work that way, and occasionally they hate that you responded with kindness. Almost like they're like, you didn't address my issues, that you didn't address that I called you this name. What's wrong with you? So I ignoring them is probably my best the thing I like to do the most. But sometimes responding in kindness, see what happens. If they don't like it, they can just ignore it back. But here's the third option, and this is one you just can't do. I fall into this trap. I do it. I did it recently. I'm trying to get better at it, is don't fight them. Don't argue with them. Don't try to prove that they're wrong and you're right. It just makes you look bad. Someone else, the one bad comment and the 200,000 other people who see that are going to see you arguing with some person. You're the bigger person in this situation, and you're arguing with a single subscriber about something that probably doesn't matter all that much. And 9 times out of 10, it does not go the way you want it to go. It doesn't end with them saying, oh, you're right, I repent. Thank you, right? That just doesn't happen. They're looking for a fight, and you're giving it to them by trying to reason and argue with them. I've gone down that path, and occasionally it's a decent kind of respectful conversation. I'm all for, if they disagree with you, that's not hate comment, by the way. That's not mean. If they say, I disagree and here's why, then I might respond and debate them in a very kind and respectable way. To me, that's kind of interesting. I typically learn something both about the other view and about my own view in those situations. But when you try to convince them that they're wrong, just for the sake of convincing them they're wrong, you're kind of playing their game, and it's not great. And bonus thing I forgot to mention, fourth response, focus on the 99% of comments that are kind, encouraging, and nice. Because reality is, if I've gotten 1,000 comments on my channel in the last couple of days, one of them might be mean, but 999 of them are funny, kind, good-spirited. So we tend to focus on that little percentage, and we let that stick in our brain and ruin our day, when the reality is the majority of the people love what we do and are appreciative of it. So I tend to say, let's lean more and think about those 99 other than the one jerk that came along just trying to ruin your day. All right, that wraps up this video. If you haven't seen this video on why you should stop waiting for permission and start doing that thing you've been desiring to do, I recommend watching this one next. Thanks for watching. See ya.